Okay, everybody, we're going to start. Thanks for joining. This webinar is going to be about dual authentication, area counting, anti-passback, how to create common areas, and interlock door groups. And so if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A feature with the two bubbles. But by questions, I mean about like what we're covering in the course. If you have any technical issues, can't see or hear anything, if you can, there's that one bubble, that's just the chat, and just send that to me or Nicole or your panelists, and we'll answer that. Just first off, can you guys hear me? If you can hear me in the chat, in one bubble, just say yes. Okay, great. So it looks like you guys can hear me. Good. Cool. All right, so we'll move to the next slide here. This is your trainer. So I'm Eric. I'm the technical trainer at ICT USA. So anything to do with getting your GX certification or online training, things like that, that would be me. And also I have here Nicole. She's the operations and training manager for ICT Canada. Nicole, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. Like Eric said, I'm Nicole, and I will be answering the questions that you pop into the Q&A today. So at any point, if you have any questions about the webinar, just pop them in there and we'll take care of them for you.
Great, great. All right, moving forward. So the GX, this series is going to be, we're going to essentially go over dual authentication, area counting, anti-passback, child or common areas, and interlock door groups. So again, just kind of a refresher course, or if you are new to this stuff, it's going to be just some enhanced information from what you might know from just the basic intrusion and access control class. So it's a little bit more features that, you know, allow flexibility on access control there. So for the dual authentication, so what this essentially does in our software is when it's enabled, it allows two individual users to activate the reader before it will unlock. In other words, you usually have like a master and you know, and another participant or like a provider. And so the master is usually the first one to badge in, and the provider is then the second one in order for them to get into that door. This would be in a scenario for something like a high security area, like in a bank, and you don't want like just any employee to go in there by themselves, like in a vault or something. You might have the manager badge in first before the employee is able to badge in. And this way, you know, it keeps anyone from getting in the door, but it also keeps track of who's letting who in the door and all that. So really the basic areas that you're going to go to in the software for this is under door type, under options in door type page. And then you're going to go to user options tab for to actually say which users have need the requirement of a dual authentication. So you do the general setting in door type, and then you do the specific user setting under the users. So let me just show you that. And so if this is our home page here, first you would go to programming dropdown, then you would go to door types. And you would either create a new door type, or you can use one of your existing door types here, and you would go to options, and under here in this tab, you would find the dual card provider can initiate access. That's really the dual authentication and how to enable that for your door type. Okay, so click on that, save it, and then go to users, and then you have to specifically say which users are going to be, you know, using this. So you would go to options under users, and right here under dual custody options on the very bottom here under options, dual custody options, you'll say which one is the master and which one is the provider. The master, again, is the one who first badges in, and the provider is the second one who badges in. Okay. And then I'm going to make Joe Schmo the provider, so master provider. See that? All right. And so now just to, just to demonstrate like how that works, if I go to my status page or view here and go to, let's say, the all events just to show this. So I have two credentials. Okay, I have a wristband and a key tag here. They're different credentials. So I'm just going to pretend that John Smith is one of them and Joe Schmo is the other. And John Smith is going to go into the door first. Okay. Area status 1. Hold on 1 second. I have something else on that. Sure, I have this.
It's just your it's those areas that you have tied to that door.
Oh, the areas, yeah. Sorry, I did a bunch of programming, guys, before this, and I probably have to delete out that stuff. And I didn't do that. Let me just do that here. Give it a minute to download. There we go. All right.
If you just check your door type.
Yeah,
setting.
let me just put the door types here. Okay, so got there, programming, door types. Just make sure I got everything right here. Dual card can initiate access, requires, oh, got the wrong one checked there. So, sorry, you want to check requires dual authentication, not the dual card provider can initiate access. That, you can only check this if you have this one checked. And what this second one does, and this is a good, I'm glad I showed you it, is that if you don't check this one, or if you check this one only, it won't do anything. You need to have requires dual authentication, and then this allows either the master or the provider to be the first one to badge in. So you don't have to be the master to be the first one if you have this checked. But if you don't have that checked, you do have to have the master badge in first and then the second person. So let's see if that works. I think I just checked the wrong thing. That was it. Okay, so now this is user John Smith access pending. So this is the one I'm looking at right now. So that's saying, okay, it needs the second to get in. So now I got the second person. Sure, they got denied access because these are not dual access master. Okay. You got to make sure that guy's got it. There we go. Okay, just had to take a minute. So the first one here was John Smith access pending. second one says granted entry once I badge that one. So just make sure you have the right things checked there. So again, it was programming, door types, and not this bottom one, but this one requires dual authentication. Now this bottom one, by checking that, again, that's going to allow so that you don't need to have the master badge in first. Either the master or the provider can be the first to badge, but you do need both of them because this requires dual authentication is also checked. So, okay, so that's the dual authentication, and dual card provider can initiate access. Those are what those do. Any questions on that?
Yeah, so just the one question so far. If you didn't care about, having two different levels of users unlocking the door, you just require two people unlocking it, then what you would do in that case is just make everybody a dual access master. So two masters can unlock the door. Otherwise, it's a master and provider. So if you don't actually have those levels, you're just looking for two people to unlock it. Maybe it's more of a health and safety thing. You have to have two people in a potentially dangerous area as opposed to a security thing. Then you would just make everybody a dual custody master. And let me just check here. We might have one other. Okay, this is a good question as well. Someone is asking, what is the time that you have to present the two cards? So by default, from the time the first person presents their card, the second person has 10 seconds to present theirs. That's the default, but you can actually make that longer. So that's in the expanders and reader expander settings. Because you might not have necessarily just card access. You could do dual authentication where you require each user to do a card and a PIN, in which case you're probably going to need a little bit more time than 10 seconds. So if you needed to, you would increase the dual authentication wait time for the reader port.
Yeah, and that's a good point because, if you're doing card and PIN, that's probably going to take more than 10 seconds. So you probably want to give it something like 30 seconds or something like that. So, okay, so good. So the next item here is area counting. Okay, so area counting essentially is what it says. If it's enabled, then it'll count how many people are in an area. And if you use a max user count as well, it can actually, you can even have an output turn on that kind of tells you when the max number of people have been reached. That's in your area configuration. And then you can also have it so that if it goes down to 0, then it will arm the area automatically. So, enable user counting usually means that you want to limit access to that area after a certain amount of people have, entered that. So if you put 15 in there or something like that, the 16th person will not be able to get into that area. And again, you can have like an output that kind of gives a signal to the person that there's too many people in there if you want to have that set up. So do that. And then, that's important nowadays. Now I think about it, with COVID and all that, people might not want workers to be too many in an area, and that might be very important in this day and age. So, go to areas. And all right. And I already have it checked here. So enable user counting. That's it right there. Okay, and then you have to say how many users do you want, right? So in the configuration here, you would put what your max user count is. So I'm going to say the max is 1 in my case because I only have 2 credentials to show you here. All right, and so then when we go to the monitoring page, all right, should work. Oh yeah, I have the dual access provider on. Sorry. Yeah. Give it a minute. So by the way, anytime you do changes, you got to give it, probably about a minute, unless you change the download time. That's the default. So if you do it too early, like I was doing earlier, then it doesn't show up right away. So. Yeah. And I got to get rid of the door types. That would help. I'm going to have to tie it. Sorry, Nicole, should I tie that to the door? I didn't do that. Put the area behind the door, right?
Yeah.
So before you do this, make sure that the door has the area associated with it. That would also help. So, so again, if I went to programming areas and I said in the configuration here, here's the max count, and make sure enable user counting. Obviously, that area is still not tied to anything yet. So, because it still has something to do with accessing into that area. So you have to put it behind the door. So to do that, you have to go to doors, and just like double badge arming or single badge disarming, you need to have something in this drop down area inside door. All right, there you go. Denied. So this guy was denied entry because, it was too. Let's see. Actually, that might be because I didn't put that in his access level. So let's make sure that's configured. Let's put in a group. Okay, so there we go. So that's what I was looking for. So Joe Schmo was the first one to sign in or to badge in, and it was granted entry. And John Smith tried to get in, but he was denied entry because of area count. So that's what it should say there. the first time when I did it, they did not have an area group associated with their access level, so it really that prevented their entry. So you got to make sure you have an area group in their arming and disarming to get in there. Is there anything else, Nicole, that you want to add to that, or?
No, I mean the user counting is fairly simple. The way that you have it set up here, 'cause one of the questions that's come through actually is this configuration requires an entry and an exit card reader because the system is tracking how many users have either entered or exited the door, and then incrementing or decrementing the area counts based on the inside and outside area configurations. So for this particular method that you've demonstrated, you need both the in and out reader on the door. We did have one question about how could you potentially create a count where you only have an entry reader or an exit reader, or essentially you only have a card reader on one side of the door and you have some other device like a request exit device that people use to get out, and is it possible to create a count that way? The answer is yes, it is possible to still use area counting. The programming is a little bit more kind of involved, and it actually uses programmable functions, specifically a register counter function that is incremented or decremented when specific inputs and outputs, which may be virtual or real devices, activate, and then when you reach your defined maximum, you would invalidate the user's access into that door. So it is still possible even if you don't have in and out readers. It's just a little bit more kind of to the programming side of things. But GX would still be able to achieve that for you. We also had just one other question regarding the area counting, which was, can you transmit to the station if the area count has been reached? So the area counting isn't really a reportable message like door forced open or other types of messages that are covered by like the contact ID standard, for example. But you could still send an alert to your station if you reached your maximum user count. So the way you would do that is by assigning a virtual output as the user count reached output, and then using an input follows output programmable function to activate a virtual input that would be the input that reports off to your station. So that's how you would do that if that's what you wanted to do, if you needed to alert a central station to a full area.
And yeah, to that point, the user count reached does have an output. You can, like a physical output you can pick here. But it sounds like there's some more involved, like virtual outputs you can do to make various other programmable functions happen as well. But this is like if you want just a beep to happen or a light to turn on when it happens, you can also do that in your outputs under areas.
Yeah, so you could use that user count reached output. Like if you were counting people in, like to say, a car park where there's only a certain amount of actual car parks, you could use that output there to ultimately drive a sign that actually says the car park is full, so people don't even try to kind of pull up to the boom gate because they already know that the car park's full. So, but that can be, like Eric said, either a physical output or a virtual output if you wanted to do some other kind of logical processing based on the number of people in a given area.
All right. And then I think, is there another question that just came up there? Or is that how would the exit of one person be handled? Or is that what we just answered?
So yeah, we have one other question about how does the exit of one person work to allow entry for another if the limit was reached. So like let's say we had a maximum user count of 10 people. So 10 people badge their card at the entry reader, and then that maxes out the number of people that are allowed in that area. So if you have in and out card readers, as soon as one person exits, because we have two distinct events like entry and exit, the controller will automatically decrement the count. So then the next person that comes along would be able to get access to that area. And likewise, that user count reached output will automatically turn off whenever the user count is no longer at its maximum. If I think this is the same person who asked about can I get user counting to work even if I don't have an exit reader? So if it's relating to that, yes, that would still work. You would just have to have some sort of device that provides a reliable signal to GX when somebody is left, like a physical push button request to exit. May not want to use a motion detector because people might walk in front of it even though they're not leaving. So you'd have to have some reliable way of knowing that a person has left.
Okay. Is there any other ones there, Nicole?
So, question: if a user had, like, if they were programmed to hold two cards and they used both of them at the door, does it count for like, would it take up two slots in the area count or just one? It would count as two. And that's why, depending on exactly kind of what you're using the area counting for, you might want to add in something like Anti-Passback, which Eric will go over shortly, that would make or ensure that the user count was more accurate by preventing people from entering the same door twice, which is the kind of goal of Anti-Passback. So you might couple it with other functionality to make sure that your count remains accurate. Okay, and someone asked, when the user count reached output has been turned on, will it deactivate when somebody leaves? Yes, it will. So as soon as the count's no longer at its maximum, the output will turn off. And we also have a question about seeing the count in some sort of status page or floor plan. So the area counting that we've just shown here, at the moment it can't be kind of displayed on a status page. There is another method using the programmable functions where we can display it on like a floor plan as a graphic or on a status page. But at the moment, there isn't just an easy way to take the count that the controller has of any given area and display it on a status page. It is a feature request with our development team, though.
Okay, cool, good questions. So going to the next thing here, what was it? There was something else I was going to show you guys with the areas. Let me just go right back here for a second. Oh, okay, right. So you can also do ARM on user count at 0. So when the last person leaves the room, when it gets to 0, it'll ARM. But you should have an exit reader for that, obviously. Let me just make sure. Okay. And let me also put some outputs on that. And of course, anytime you do an output change, you want to do an arm and disarm cycle. And make sure that goes through. All right, so I'm got them exiting. Just make sure to enter. This should be denied because the area counts. There we go. Okay, just took a minute. So you could probably hear the beeping there. Okay, so what that was is after John Smith was able to go in, and then when he left, because there's only one person that was allowed to go in the area, it was armed. And that was because of the zero counting after the last person leaves the area. All right, any questions on that one? Pretty straightforward. Pretty good, okay. So next, did some of that, so we did all this stuff. Entry passback, okay, so passback is a pretty much so you don't send your credential like a card, give it to someone while you're trying to enter into an area. So you open a door, you badge in, you open a door, and then you give it to someone behind you. That's why they call it passback, and have them enter the area, without badging out the right way. So using the card in a way that you're not supposed to. So how do you create this anti-passback? You can go into door types, and pick card this time. And on here you can see entry passback mode. And right now it says none, and you could do a hard and soft passback. So a hard passback would be if so if you badged in and then you didn't exit the room properly, and then you try to badge in again, it would not let you in. You'd have to get it reset. And that would be, someone like an administrator or something that has to reset, go into users, and actually reset it there. So they would actually go to the actual user, right click and say reset anti-passback. That's default what you would have to do, unless you have it on a timer or a schedule, which you can also do that. So just before I go into that, I just want to show you how that would work. Okay, so we got the anti-passback hardback for entry there. And you do have to have entry and exit readers for this. and you would have to make sure the card type was, or the door type was on the door. So let's just make sure card is there. Yep, that's the right door type. Okay, so just says there, user John Smith entry anti-passback failure at door. So because he didn't badge out correctly the exit. So if I go to users, I can reset that by right-clicking, reset anti-passback. Give it a little bit to download. And now it's access granted because that hard passback was taken away and reset. So that's good. And if you wanted to do a soft passback, go again to door types, just change it from hard passback to soft passback. And that means that even if they exited the area wrong, they didn't do it correctly, it would still let them come back in the area. They would still get granted entry, but you would get a event that said, you know, this didn't do it. Okay, let's see. Let me, oh, the area count. I still had that on me. Let me get them out. All right, and that let him in. Reading mode card input. Is that what they would see there, Nicole, generally? Oh, entry soft, there it is. I didn't see that. The entry soft anti-passback, that's failure. So that's what you would see. So any questions on the difference between the hard anti-passback and the soft anti-passback? You also have to make sure that you have your doors have areas behind them. So area 1 inside, area 2 outside. So you have to have areas behind the entry reader in this case. That would be the inside, and behind the exit reader in that case. So that way it knows which areas have violated the anti-passback. Okay, and also just another thing with the anti-passback. So again, it's under door types. That's where I put that. You can also do you could do ones that are timed, and that would be let's see here. I think that would be users. Is that under users, Nicole?
A timed reset?
Yeah.
It's under the door.
The door, that's right. Programming doors. Sorry about that. There it is. Advanced options. There we go. All right. So it's anti-passback, user reset time, and exit reset time. So that's where if you enable the reset anti-passback status timed user reset, that would be using this function here, where you can put any, if you want it to be like 30 seconds there, you can do that. It's set to 200 as a default, but you can always change that. And then you can also do it on a schedule. And if you create a schedule, it'll reset it whenever that schedule begins. Any questions related to passback?
Someone just asked what is the value of time for the reset time there, and it's in minutes as opposed to seconds.
Yeah. Oh, and if I just hovered there, yeah. It doesn't tell you though, it just says minimum max.
So you would want to use Anti-Passback. We can use it for just security purposes, like Eric mentioned at the start, to prevent a user from physically providing their card to somebody else who is not them. You can also use it for any time where you want to kind of force the on-site users to actually badge in and out at certain doors, which you generally want to do, like I said, when we talked about the area counting, you want to make sure the area count is accurate. The other time you might utilize it is if you're doing something like muster reporting, again, because you want to make sure that your muster reporting data is as accurate as possible. So you want to kind of really force the users to make sure that they're in and out, or attendance, time and attendance is another good one as well. So those are other kind of situations where you might want to deploy Anti-Passback.
All right, is there any other questions?
So one question about, is the passback set by an area? I think that means, can it be reset by an area? If that was the case, yes, you could. It would be kind of like a roundabout way. You would use an area to validate a schedule, which is your anti-passback reset schedule would be the way that you would do that. We got some other ones here. Does anti-passback count if you didn't open the door? So that's a good question. That's kind of that checkbox where Eric's at right now. So if you do not check that box, then as soon as you badge your card, it's going to consider that you opened that door, you walked through it, and you're therefore now in the area, just depending on which direction you're going through, what the associated area. If you don't want anti-passback to count until you've actually opened the door, then you would check the box that Eric's showing there. So that means that you can badge, but until you actually pull the door open, it's not counting you as being inside that area.
Yeah, and just want to reiterate again, for this to work, you do need to have for this to work, you do need to have the areas behind the inside the door and outside set here. So, all right. Is there any more questions on this?
Okay, so we have a question about whether if you have doors that open into the same sort of areas. So like the example that the person asking the questions provided is if you have several turnstiles leading into a particular area, how would you use anti-passback in that situation? The answer is just basically to use the same areas for the multiple doors, turnstiles, or gates. So in this question, it's specifically about turnstiles in an office or kind of warehouse environment. Each turnstile is a door, so all of those doors would have the same inside and outside areas, inside being warehouse, outside being the office or whatever it might be. Same thing if you were doing it like you're using Anti-Passback because you are running muster reports and you just care about who's on-site and off-site, you might set all of your perimeter doors up with Anti-Passback, and the inside of all perimeter doors is just an area called on-site, and the outside area is another area called off-site. So you just share the areas on the multiple doors if that's your scenario.
All right. So next, just going to show you. Get this. All right. So child area or a common area. So child area is one dependent on another one, like a parent area. For example, if an area is armed, then a child area can be automatically armed. So that's just a regular situation where, let's say you have an office and a warehouse, the office is armed, and the warehouse, if it's a child area, would also be armed. But where this can get interesting is where you can use it as the child area feature to create a common area. And there's no limit on how many number of areas can have a child area that it's relating to. So in other words, let's say Office 1 is a parent area and Office 2 is a parent area, and then the middle corridor or whatever is the common area. Then you need to have Office 1 and 2 be armed if you have this feature enabled, and I'll show you where it is. If you have both of them armed, then you can arm that middle area. And that would be called, let's say, the common area. So how would you set that up? All right, so as you see here, it's going to be in the area options here. So all right, so I got 3 areas here. Let's say that's area 1 is Office 1, area 2 is Office 2, and we have a common area. So under area 1 in configuration, I'm going to set the child area as the common area. Okay, and in Office 2, I'm also going to set the child area as the common area. Okay, so these are the 2 parent areas, and the common area is the child area of both. And if I go to the monitoring page, and also, sorry, options, I have to enable the feature whereby, the child area will be armed, so I have that. And also I have to enable that if all the areas are armed, then arm the child area. So you have to have both of those checked for the common area of 2 or more parent areas to be armed. So now when both of these are armed, then the common area is armed, not just one. So when I go to the monitoring page, and we'll do the layout where we have status lists here. So they're all armed already, so let's disarm that. All right, so I'm going to arm it. Arming area 1. Okay, arming area 2. And by arming both of those areas, once area 2 is armed, the common area should be automatically start to arm. And so you can kind of see scenarios where, like at the end of the day, the workers in Office 1 double badge arm doesn't arm the common area yet. Let's say Office 2 double badge arms, that will then send the timer to leave and then arm it. All right, so we got that. And this is taking a while because I have that one on 30 seconds, I think, on an exit delay. Any questions on this scenario?
Okay, let me just take a quick look here. So We have one question about the child area functionality, and is it like a man trap? It's almost like the opposite of a man trap, because the child area, which is the common area in this case, is following the state of at least one other area, but potentially more. There is functionality that would make the areas or doors, actually, which Eric will cover the doors bit next, that would make it more like a man trap. It's called interlock areas or interlock doors, which means that only say one area in a group would be able to be disarmed if the rest are armed, or etc. Or in the case of doors, only one door in a group can be unlocked and open at a time. So the child area is kind of the opposite of that. It's more about getting areas to follow another area. And then we also have another question about, can the common area be disarmed the same way as it was armed? And the answer is yes. There are another set of options in the area programming to disarm the child area, either when one or all parent areas are disarmed. So that would be disarm child area or disarm child area if all others are disarmed.
And yeah, so just make sure that you have them checked properly, what you want to do. Okay, so next, we're going to go over, I think someone mentioned man traps. We call them interlock groups, same thing, or interlock door groups. So this is essentially, so if you have, let's say, two doors in an interlock group, then if one door is open, the other door will not be able to open. So if one door contact is open, the other one won't be able to open. And then if that closes, then the other door then will be able to open. Okay, so first you want to create the door groups, and then you want to assign those groups under door general to each of the doors in the interlock group. So creating the group now, putting the doors that I want to be in the interlock group in that. So got both doors in there. And you can have more than two doors. You can have like a 3-door interlock group if you want. But I'm just doing that. And then going under doors, and you'll see the interlock group drop down here. So you're going to put that interlock group there and under the other door. So now if I open door 1, door 2 will not be able to be opened until that closes, and then door 2 will be able to be opened. So let's see if that works. Oh, let's see. Gotta exit out. I got the counter on. Oh yeah, I have a camera associated with that when I do a door forced open. Sorry. let's see. I'm trying to recreate this on a kit, so I don't really have a door here. I'm just trying to do the, oh yeah, it did say here, denied entry. Is there an interlock group? There it is. Exit denied by interlock group. So, it's hard to see it because you can't see me actually doing this, but on my test kit, I badged up on door port 1, and then it opened the input. I badged at the entry reader on the first door and opened the input 1, and that was like opening the door. And then I quickly switched it over to the second door, tried to badge in and open it, and on input 5, which is the second door contact, and it gave this event here. So, which is saying door 2 is denied because it had the interlock on it. So that's what you should see. Okay, any questions on that?
Yep. So just the one really, and it is just regarding does the interlock look to just the door contact, or would it also look into the output for the locking device? So it would look to what is the status of the door in terms of is it unlocked and open or not. So it would combine like the entire door state, so the door contact, the lock output, and also if you happen to have a lock sense or a bond sense input as well. So it would combine. It's looking for the total status of the door.
All right, and I think that is the last one we were going to show today. Yeah, that is. All right, so that is all we were going to show you. If is there any other questions before we leave? All right, anything there, Nicole?
No, just see if maybe give another minute. Okay. So we have a question about whether the webinar is recorded. So we did record it. We'll get it to our marketing team, who will hopefully be able to get it out to everybody who registered for the webinar. Okay. And did we talk about the loiter function is another question. So we didn't cover the loiter function. So the loiter functionality is essentially if you go down to, just scroll down a little bit there, it means that you would tie areas to the inside or outside areas of your doors, and then it's basically programming that allows you to say that users are only allowed to spend a certain amount of time inside that particular area. And if they don't exit the area before that time, they're basically not allowed to leave, and they have to be reset. So it's fairly straightforward programming. It's just what is the loiter time. The loiter reset area is basically an area that they will be transferred to when they breach the loiter time that they aren't allowed to leave from. So they basically don't have access to it, and that's how we deny them from leaving. And then just to enable loitering on the area itself, which is under options 1 or 2 from memory.
All right, and in the chat, if you can, just let me know, was this pretty helpful, this webinar in general? Just want to make sure that you guys got something out of it, learned something today. Cool. Looks positive. That's good. Good. I'm glad this is helping you guys. Okay, so is there any other questions before we leave?
Yeah, we have one other question. Could we create basically the opposite to a loiter function so that a user would not be able to leave until they've spent a certain amount of time in the area? Yeah, we should be able to do that. Off the top of my head, what I would probably do is you would have to have different access levels for entry and exit, which is just in the configuration for the particular door. And when you entered, you used an output to start a timer. And while that output is activated, the exit access level is invalidated. And when that timer expires, it becomes valid again and it allows the user to leave. That would be off the top of my head. There might be a couple of other ways to do it, but it should be something that we can configure one way or another with the options in GX.
All right. So it looks like time's up. Thank you guys very much again for joining, and sounds like you got a lot out of this. So I'm really glad, and have a good rest of your week. We'll let you know if any announcements for any upcoming trainings, if there's any in July. There's some holidays and things like that, so we're going to see like what the schedule is going to be, but we'll let you know through email when the next one's going to be. So that's it though. But so yeah, have a good rest of your week, and that's the end of the meeting.